But first of all, I'd just like to say thank you for everybody joining today. I know everybody's very busy, but I think we should have a really insightful session today on quite a hot topic at the moment, I think, with post-COVID and everything that's going on. So I'll start today's session. So welcome everybody to November's Innovation Friday. That's today. That's around sort of disruptive thinking to build better wellbeing and resilience products. So each month, the Leicester Innovation Hub presents one of the different programs, presents an Innovation Friday. So we are presenting today as the Leicester Life Sciences Accelerator, otherwise known as the LSSA. So just one note, a little bit of housekeeping just today. You will need your phones for a little bit of audience participation at some point. So please keep your phones close, but also keep them on silent. Now, but also just as a little bit of housekeeping, we will be sort of changing screens between different presenters today. So just bear with us while we share screens and swap. So going into the first session today is around sort of disruptive thinking and actually thinking around well-being and resilience across the whole spectrum, from both in the clinic and actually at home. So first, I'd just like to give a little introduction to the Leicester Innovation Hub. So the Leicester Life Sciences Accelerator is part of one of the three programs that are hosted within the Innovation Hub. So there are sister programs at Leicester Innovation Accelerator, and that's the LIA, and the Space Technology Applications Research Accelerator, that's STAR. I'm not going to do a deep dive into the three different programs, but if you'd like any more information, feel free to reach out to us or any of the members of the team today. So the Leicester Life Sciences Accelerator, there are 5 members of the team. There's myself, James Finney as the project manager, Dr. Helen Decrez, the business development executive, who unfortunately can't be here today because she's unfortunately come down with COVID. There's Manisha Agiane, who's on the call today, the business development officer, and Arnaud Drapier, the knowledge transfer officer. Leading the program is Professor Toru Suzuki, who is the academic director, and unfortunately he's in clinic today, so can't be with us for the first part, but hopefully we'll be able to join for the panel session later on today. Now, as most of you know, because you are engaged with the Leicester Life Sciences Accelerator, Leicester has a long heritage of many life science breakthroughs across many different disciplines. Now, I've only got a short amount of time, so I'm not going to go into all of these, but this just gives a quick snapshot over all the different areas of life sciences within Leicester. Now, Leicester has a number of different research strengths, and we've got sort of 6 sort of key anchor institutions within the university. So that is LISCP, LPMI, the link to the University Hospitals, Leicester NHS Trust, the BRC, that's the Biomedical Research Centre, the Cardiovascular Research Centre, and the Leicester Diabetes Centre. Now, I know that's just a quick overview of the background of Leicester, but basically within the Leicester Life Sciences Accelerator, what we try to do is facilitate innovation projects so a company can come to us, and then we can sort of work with companies to signpost to either academics and clinicians to enable and support their innovation projects. And basically we sort of have 3 areas that we are able to sort of give support, and that's sort of access to experts, navigation, and collaboration. So access to experts will be around getting access to clinical trials or the clinical data science around that. Navigation could be signposting to regulatory advice, routes to market that we'll be going in later, and then collaboration, so whether it's the product service development or actually looking to undertake collaborative research and funding that we will go into later. So what do we offer? How does this work? So basically, if a company comes to us with a problem, we will have a look at how we can sort of solve that. So we sort of have 2 different arms of projects. One are sort of the sport projects. These are short projects over 6 different fields. These are life sciences, business support, research design, market research, funding and application support, health and data support, or health economics analysis. If any of you have any questions around these, please feel free to reach out to me and I can provide you with more detailed information. While also offering the smart projects, we also have longer term collaborative projects, so that we are able to do. And the output of all of these is a solution for the company, whether that is undertaking a small proof of principle, some market research to sort of validate a question, or a plethora of different other problems. But really, what we try to do is with the LSA acts as that transformational step. Now, we're currently engaged with around sort of 30 to 35 different companies, and the breadth of who we are working with, the companies that we are working with is quite astounding. So we've got diagnostic companies all the way to AI companies, and like today, health and well-being and resilience companies. So it's very broad. Now, what I've just tried to give there is just sort of a quick overview of what we do in the LSSA. Now, I'd like to just switch over to my colleague Manish, who is going to play a short video from Professor Toru Suzuki for the need for disruptive thinking in well-being and resilience from a clinical perspective.
Good morning. I'm Professor Toru Suzuki, the Academic Director for the Leicester Life Sciences Accelerator. I'm also consultant cardiologist at Glenfield Hospital of the University Hospitals of Leicester NHS Trust, which is just up the road where I have clinical commitments this morning. Leicester Life Sciences Accelerator has been committed to supporting the businesses and local community as well during this difficult time of COVID. Glenfield Hospital has also been one of the main institutions for COVID treatment during this pandemic, having recruited the most patients into clinical trials. And I understand that we have also had the best outcomes for COVID patients nationwide as well, full stop. One of the challenges coming out of COVID is that there are many patients with what is called long COVID or post-COVID syndrome. And one of the most challenging parts of that is to understand the mental issues or what is called brain fog associated with that as well. During the early stages of COVID, we worked with one of our partner companies called Elephant Kiosk to put together a screening kiosk for a COVID at workplaces, which involved asking the 3 questions of a continuous high temperature, persistent cough, as well as loss of smell or taste, in addition to automated temperature checking, so that this can enable IT or IoT-based COVID screening for the workplaces. Now, coming out of COVID, we are still committed to helping the community as well as affected individuals as well. And we'd like to put together a software app that would help patients come out of COVID and long COVID in many ways in an informative but also rehabilitatory way to aid them in their chronic or long-term situation with COVID. And for that, we have partnered with a company called Focus Games to put together a software for this, which will be discussed this morning in the sessions as well. I hope you enjoy the sessions today. Thank you.
Thank you, Manish, for that. And thank you to Toru. Now, I must say, Toru actually did that very quickly yesterday because he knew that he was going to be in clinic. So thanks to Toru for that. I'm going to just take over again now so that I can continue the presentation. Just give me a moment, please. So as highlighted by Toru, resilience and well-being is quite broad because a lot of people have presented to him in clinic with brain fog, and what we are trying to do is actually, as he mentioned, we are working with a company called Focus Games, and Andy Yeoman from Focus Games will be giving a presentation later. But this very much sort of fits in with the cross-disciplinary COVID-19 research that's been undertaken by Leicester. So I just wanted to point out what we're doing here. Now, this is the long COVID app that we're looking to develop is very much sort of, I'd say, an in-clinic sort of and potentially out-of-clinic application of well-being, because the brain fog, while it's not necessarily a primary symptom of COVID, it can affect people's quality of life. And at the moment, there isn't a proper way to sort of triage that and actually signpost people for the correct help. linking in with that, one of the things we would like to do is actually get people's opinion. So this is the first part of audience participation. Now, I did ask all of you to sort of keep your phones close by. So one of the questions we would like to pose is, what does resilience mean to you? Now, if people would be able to get their mobile phones and actually open the cameras, and if people are used to, this is a QR code on the right hand side of the slide. If you would be able to scan this with your camera, and hopefully it should appear with a link. If you can then click the link, and you should be invited to go to a website where you can put some free text that actually talks about what you can feel what resilience means to you. Now, if that's not working, there is the option to go onto the website directly by typing in slido.com/205-911. So I'll just give people a minute or so to do this, and then I will go to the website and actually show what people's thoughts on resilience means. I realise people are muted, but there's a general feeling, is this working, or I need to leave it on for longer?
You've had a few responses, James.
Cool. I'm going to leave it on a little bit longer, because if I come off, people won't be able to. I'd also point out that all of the results are anonymous as well, so. I'm just going to come out of this now. And as you can see, there's a word cloud that is being developed here. And as you can see, we've got sort of crisis management, flexibility. A lot of people are talking about the ability to cope, toughness. What I'd say is the larger the words are, the more counts that is actually more people have actually said that. Bounce back ability. One of the reasons that we're trying to do this is actually to sort of contextualize, ready for the talk from Professor John Maltby next, to actually around what people's perceptions of resilience can mean. So I'll just give people another 30 seconds. So I'm just going to go back to the presentation quickly now, and sorry, I'd like to hand over to Professor John Maltby, who will be discussing about building better wellbeing and resilience products.
Hi all. James, do I have to sort of request control and take over the?
I'm going to come out now, John. Just give me 1 second.
Okay.
I should be out now.
And can I then share content?
Yep.
Fantastic. Sorry all. Hi all. Thanks very much for coming today. I'm going to talk to you about 2 or 3 things today, but mainly it's going to be focused around concepts of resilience and well-being, or well-being and resilience. The aim of my talk really is, first of all, to sort of introduce you to the sort of types of psychological research that exist within the University of Leicester, and particularly areas we might focus on. So I might touch on things about well-being and resilience today, but it will feed into so many different areas. Then I'm going to talk about some ideas about well-being and resilience. And for this, really my focus is particularly on the idea that lots of people, as we've just shown, have different ideas about resilience. But when it comes to the marketplace, very much a lot of companies will be trying to sell ideas which maybe not be based on the best science, but be based on a new or different idea or a selling angle. And though that might be interesting, what we think we can offer is very clear, evidence-based, simple, usable models of well-being and resilience that you could be using and rolling out in your business. And also, I'm going to show how we've used some of these ideas working with organisations and companies. I can't give specifics on some of these because a lot of these are about competitive and developing new ideas, but hopefully what I'll be able to do is sort of capture your imagination and see how it might be working in your company. So the first area I'm going to talk about is the department and the sort of psychological research we do. We're a very focused department, and we work a lot with the hospitals and many different areas with people who work in ophthalmology, cardiovascular science, health sciences, pharmacy. So we're a department that's really focused on application, clinical application, health applications, and taking our basic ideas and working with partners to develop these ideas. And there's two key areas we work in. We've got an area that works in vision across the lifespan and looks at that in relation to health and disease. And perhaps a little bit more appropriate today is that we do a lot of work in assessment and treatment in health and well-being, looking at population health and disease across the lifespan. So what does that mean in terms of everyday ideas? Well, we are very much focused on ageing, and we have one of our other professors here today, Elisabetta, who's going to talk a little bit about some of the work she's done. But we do basic ideas, and we're really good at helping people develop things around simple things like reading. Reading is incredibly important. Reading accurately, reading information, getting it right is important. We can help you work on areas around your decision making, where decisions may be made. Errors cost a lot of money. They can cause problems and issues, and making good decisions and making them correct and well judged and evidence based, and we can work with you on that. We can also help in areas of behaviour change. Simply, it's not a matter of just having a good intending to do something. There's lots of things built into changing one's behaviour or developing one's behaviour, and we can help build packages around that. We're incredibly skilled at assessment. If you want something measuring, we're really good at measuring things and developing ways that you can make your measurements reliable and valid. And we also have a wealth of expertise in terms of health and well-being. So that's mainly the department. Hopefully that gives you some context. But today I'm going to talk to you about well-being and resilience and the work that we've done. And I think what's really important for me to stress to you today is that the angle we're coming from is that I'm not going to introduce you today our idea or our approach to well-being and resilience in terms of that we've got a model that rivals other models and we're all competing in the same market. What I'm saying to you is that the work that we're doing is based on evidence, research, not models that we've come up, but models that we've discovered work the best, work well from the evidence, and that we're using those evidence-based models that to help companies develop issues around well-being and resilience, that we're really focused on using the best models, the evidence, the pedigree to sort of move things forward. And from that, we think we have a really strong basis to go forward, that we're not selling you a new idea, we're selling you long established ideas that have credibility and that will give you the best sort of basis for moving forward. So one of the ideas that we focus on is, and this may not be new to you, is this difference between different types of well-being. When we look at health and we look at ideas and we look at things like quality of life and happiness, a lot of people talk about this in what we call hedonic well-being terms. This idea that our everyday evaluations, I feel a little bit not okay today, I feel a bit sluggish, or I feel pretty engaged with the world, and aspects like that. And that's the sort of well-being we talk about a lot. That's the sort of thing that when people are measuring people in employment situations or in clinical situations or in treatment situations, they're looking for people to say that they're feeling a little better. But the area of well-being that we like to focus on is something that we think is a kind of longer term engagement, which we call Eudaimonic well-being. And that's very much focused on things about people building capacity and trajectories around their well-being so it carries them forward. So it's less about how you feel on an everyday basis, whether you wake up in the morning and whether you're feeling sluggish or engaged, but actually having a longer term dialogue with yourself about how you're able to meet life's challenges, how you're able to go forward. So in this area, things like autonomy are important. The ability for you to make choices, to be able to regulate your own behaviour, not to succumb perhaps to the demands of others, but you're able to see yourself making decisions and moving forward. Aspects like being in environmental mastery, being able to choose your context, be able to make choices around what suits your personal needs, to work in environments that make you feel happy and feel in control. Then there's elements of things like personal growth, that there's a sense of realizing one's potential, there's a sense that you're moving forward in life. Things like purpose in life, the sense of directedness, and just not in terms of just moving forward, but where are you going? What do you want to do? Things like having positive relationships with others, having warm, satisfying, trusting relationships with others that make you feel supported, and also things like self-acceptance, that it's not just about feeling good about yourself, but acknowledging multiple aspects of oneself and accepting that maybe you're not the perfect person, but you're okay with that. You feel comfortable with understanding your strengths and weaknesses. And what's incredibly important about this is a very powerful concept in terms of building well-being, that it's not a short-term temporary assessment of how you are, but it's actually incredibly important for moving through life. And there's a lot of evidence that this type of well-being is the well-being that helps you across trajectories in life, across major stresses, across major movements from in terms of family, in terms of work, and being able to deal with challenges and stresses. Building this type of well-being is important to that element. Moving on a little bit, and you'll recognise this because we just did this exercise, is that many people have many different ideas of what resilience is. These are probably the ideas that we came up with, but also other concepts come into resilience, that people talk about the ability to be extroverted, to go out and enjoy yourself and sort of bounce off things, the ability to get along with people, make yourself resilient. And basically, like this morning, we can come up with all sorts of different ideas about what makes resilience. Now, this is incredibly important in terms of understanding the marketplace for people who will be coming up with resilience ideas, that what you will have is a competitive marketplace where people will be developing single aspects of this or developing elements of this to sort of claim that they're measuring resilience, and they will sell you a product or an idea to say this is where the literature is at, this is a new idea, this is a different idea. I've taken a very different approach to this, and I've really wanted to know what resilience is. And we've done studies across the world trying to look for the latent underlying factors of what resilience is across all these different definitions. What is resilience? Excuse me, I'm just going to take a quick sip of water. So we've done this across 6 continents, asking people what they think resilience is. We've taken all the different measures of resilience that exist and looked for underlying factors. And what we found is that the basic functions or ideas of resilience very much echo a theory that was discussed back in the 1970s in terms of ecological theory, natural environments, and that there are 3 major resilience systems. And these won't be new things. These should be instantly recognizable to you. But the key thing is, when we talk about resilience, these are the 3 main systems that you should be looking at. So the idea that what they call engineering resilience, but it's what someone earlier said was bounce back ability, the ability to return quickly and easily back to your usual self. So that when a stress occurs, are you able to bounce back? The second type of resilience, again, won't be new to you, but it's the ability to show a level of toughness or strength in terms of stress. But that toughness and strength is not just being robust, but it's to be able to keep going, that you keep your functions going, you're able to retain who you are, keep your key processes, that you're able to just basically keep going. And the final aspect is adaptive capacity. And this is the ability not just to adapt, but to have the skills and the temperament and the approach to life that you are ready to adapt, that when that stress occurs, it's not that you just adapt, that you basically are able to vary processes, change things, so that when that stress occurs, you kind of roll with it, you're able to work with it. So our argument is, and there's a lot of evidence for this, across different types of systems, from a biological system to environmental systems to psychological systems, to how understanding how communities work, how public and private sector organizations work, how financial systems work, to how political systems work, that this model, so these three ideas, which aren't new to anybody and won't be new to you, but these are the three basic things that you should be taking care of. And the important thing about this is a natural system. So it's really, it's a really powerful sort of model for tapping into to everyday sort of processes that you're looking at. You're not reinventing the wheel. What you're trying to do is tap into the natural processes that people have or don't have, and trying to engage them with that. So that's incredibly important. The other area is now I want to tell you how we've used some of these ideas to work with different organisations and companies. Oh, sorry, I've skipped. Sorry, I just have one more thing to say. Apologies for that. I've done it in the wrong order. So, in terms of our approach, it's really important that when we look out there in terms of the market and what commercially doing, what people are trying to do is they're trying to tap into well-being, they're trying to tap into resilience, and they're trying to sort of drive something which presents a new or an alternative to what's out there. So, and there's a rich market to drive on, so to pull on. So many people can look at different ideas around well-being and say this is important, and they can pick a particular area like autonomy and put a package together and argue that that's a really important thing and work with that and develop that package and drive it forward. Or they might say something about resilience, about the ability to bounce back, and put that together as a package and drive it together. But what I'm trying to say to you today is that actually, if we look at the research and the evidence base and what we can offer you, is that that we have an overall view of these areas, and we can identify through the evidence the basic ideas that you should be using, and therefore you have confidence in using these ideas, because you know that you're capturing the most variance that occurs, that you're not just using part of a model or a model that falls within a wider dimension, but it's a really important thing. And in terms of going forward and using these models, using these evidence and these research-driven models, is that you're not sort of satisfying, you know, a company's perspective of trying to come up with something new or something different, but you know that at the heart of what you're doing is a powerful, parsimonious, and and a model with pedigree, that has rigor, that has evidence base, that has been shown to be the model that is at the centre of all this activity, and it has credibility. And as I said, there's a lot of evidence, not only in terms of the resilience model, but the well-being model that I talked about earlier, is that these are natural occurring systems that occur across the lifespan, and therefore they are things that can really build resilience and well-being in people, that they are powerful things. So just to show how we've used some of these models in different contexts, and as I said, I can't go into too much detail because these are things that sort of touch on sort of key things that people are trying to develop to get ahead in the market. But there's certain work that we've used the resilience model of this engineering, this ecological and adaptive capacity with commercial and public sector organisations, that what we've done in certain areas across education, across prisons, across the health sector, it is look at companies who say, look, we think that we've either failed in this area, or that we're at threat of failure and we need to build in some resilient systems. And what we've developed is toolkits with them to sort of look at their different areas of resilience look at their different levels of their service in terms of their service users or their teams or their organisation and policy, and being able to map out the sort of things that they need to do and things that need to implement into their organisation to build it as a resilient organisation. And we've got some key primers from leaders who of the sort of things they've done, and we can very much have a dialogue about how people can build their company or building systems into their company that make them resilient. We've also done this in terms of working with populations, so you might be working with particular populations, and what we can do is help develop measures of these constructs where, you know, it's very easy to put out a questionnaire, but people can't necessarily always answer questionnaires on these things about where they are or what they're doing, for example, with elderly or vulnerable populations. But what we can do is we can develop other measures that tap into those aspects, so we might be able to observe behaviour in some way, and that can help us by using those constructs to measure those things and bring that into things like the care situation. We can improve personal care planning and management, and this has a commercial aspect of increasing prices and retention strategies. And finally, in terms of promoting health, we've done some work where we look at natural occurring situations where activities might promote well-being, and what we're able to do is take these activities. It might be an organisation which does a series of activities, and what we can do is link them through evidence and research. It is to link them to particular aspects of eudaimonic well-being. For example, planting trees. As we can see, there might be aspects of social behaviour there. There might be aspects of purpose in life. And if we're able to make that real connection with that, what we're able to do is build in a package where you're able to improve, you know, health and psychological approaches as part of a commercial enterprise. So just to sum up, I hopefully, you know, introduce you to our department and sort of showing you some of the areas that we could perhaps feed into, and hopefully use some concepts that you might think, oh yes, you know, decision making, we're interested in that. I've told you about some of the aspects of well-being and resilience, and I really implore you to use these models, not because it's my model. These are models that we've derived from or used from other areas of psychology where we've got evidence, and therefore these are the best evidence-based models that you should be using. If you're using other models, then I would be sort of suggesting that you shift across. And also, perhaps I've indicated some of the ways that we can work with organisations and companies using these models. Okay, I don't know if we're opening up for questions, but thank you very much for listening.
Thank you. Thanks for that, John. We're going to save the questions until the end of the session.
Okay, great.
Okay. I'd just like to say thanks, because that was really a good insight, and actually the translational approach to the models to actually in the application for different businesses. I'm just going to share my screen again and now. Just give me 1 second, please. And I'd like to welcome Professor Elisabetta, and also we have a video from a company that she worked with, BrainBerry, from Kartheka Bojan. Unfortunately, Kartheka's she had another meeting that she had to go to, so she has prepared a video in advance. Elisabetta, do you want to, shall we play the video first, or would you like to present?
I think that the video would be great to see. If that's all right. And
yeah.
Afterwards, I'll briefly comment on our joint working together. Thank you.
Brilliant.
Hi all, good morning. I'm Kartheka Bojan, founder of and CEO of BrainBerry Ltd. It's a real shame that I couldn't be face-to-face for this event. The event name is Need for Disruptive Thinking, and I think we would fit very much into the journey. So today I'm going to share my journey with you guys as a person with entrepreneurship spirit, but also how universities can really help us to realize our dreams. So start with my company and the reason I started. I'm a person who always thinks why you start anything is more important than how you start. So I'm a biomedical engineer by background, but I really started this company because of my personal experience with dementia. So what we do at BrainBerry is we are developing a therapeutic device for people with early dementia to see if we can improve their quality of life by improving their cognition and psychological well-being. And as a teenager, I was really affected by this because my grandmother went through Alzheimer's. It was a really slow progression in a case, and it took 8 years before she went bedridden, but it really did impact me very emotionally because she couldn't recognize us anymore, and she was the one who brought us up. So probably that was there subconsciously in me. But when I decided to start my own startup, when I got an idea about doing into dementia, everything fell into place, and I thought it was the right moment to start my business. But guess what? This is what entrepreneurship looks like. My plan was it's going to be a very straight road. I've got a great idea and I'm going to get it done. But, you know, as well, with life, this is what you see as reality. But in entrepreneurship, it's 100 times what you see as reality. The downs go really down deep where there's no light at the tunnel. And when you grow high, you're really in such a height that you're still alone. Either you're at the bottom or the top. But that's the journey of being an entrepreneur and entrepreneurship. But in my case, the story goes really interesting. Because I had this very big concept in my head, and I went to investors, really highly spirited, went to investors and asked for money. And they said, where is the proof of concept? Where is the evidence for it? So I went to universities, many universities, and I asked them, can you help me with the proof of concept? And they asked me, can you give me some, can you look for funding so that we can do this pilot study for you? So it was a chicken and egg scenario for me, and my spirit was getting lower. And this was almost 2 years. I've been to and fro with investors in different kinds of universities. And this is how life works. So I was in an event once, around, I think in 2015, completely frustrated with life. I wasn't sure whether what I was trying to do was the right thing. I was sitting next to this person and just let out my frustration on how universities work. And she was impressively quiet, and she was listening to me. And after I poured out all my frustration, she did hand over a card to me and said, just email me, right? And she was the business development officer at University of Leicester at that time. I think she's not working for the University of Leicester anymore. She's moved to the US. And by that time, I had many bitter experiences. So I thought, it's just an email. I'm going to send it to her anyway. And I did send it to her. And to my surprise, within a couple of days, Professor Elizabeth contacted me, and they said, and so does the business development woman. And they said, oh, let's meet. I was like, all right. And I went for the meeting. It just was 30 minutes, just 30 minutes. And Elizabeth said, I'm in. And oh, we're there. I started my journey. So before I go further into the story, let me say what our medical device or what our concept is. So we are developing a gamification aiming at really improving the cognition and psychological well-being of people with dementia. But we do not stop with gamification. We also develop a wearable headset which monitors the brainwave activity of each individual. And we kind of tailor the gamification depending on the brainwave activity with the element of AR we develop. So right, so this entire innovation sits into a big cloud server, then which we then give the access of these data to GP or carers so that they can understand where the progression of the disease is, or if this gamification treatments are improving their cognition. But what the AI does is it also changes the gamification depending on how an individual acts and what their symptoms are, rather than a general treatment method. So it's a very personalized treatment depending on individuals. The reason is dementia is very different and everybody is affected differently. My grandmother started with really anger and frustration, whereas I know people who have started with just short-term memory issues. So it could be anything for any different person. So this is our technology. So I'll continue my story from there. So Elisabetta was in and we thought, great, we'll do it. However, we did not have any funding. Then the Innovation Hub kicked in and they said, we would help you with the funding and you can go ahead with your pilot study. So, you know, the picture on the first corner, that was our first clinical proof of concept study. I did in collaboration with University of Leicester, with Leicester Innovation Hub's funding. And we were able to prove the concept of neuroplasticity. So when I say like we are measuring the brainwave activity, what we were trying to prove to people is, look, if you train your brain, the activation from one brain region could move to the other brain region, which means a shift of learning has happened. And with the very first drawing you see there, we were able to prove that. And the story continues. And now we have finished our first phase 1 clinical trials to prove that there has been enormous improvement in motor skills in mild cognitive patients and also spatial skills in Alzheimer's disease patients. So there we go. But what exactly the Innovation Hub Fund do to us? It was it's a small fund, but what it did was much, much bigger. It led us to get our first VC fund in 2019. And after that, there was no turning back to us, followed by the VC fund. Just with the same results, we were able to attract Innovate UK funds thrice till date. I think it's more than 500,000 of government funds based on those results we got from the University of Leicester till date. So this is a journey with University of Leicester. And I would like to say to people who are in entrepreneurship, specifically in life science businesses, you know, it's really, really hard, but, you know, you never know how a small thing could make a very big impact in your business. And that small thing was Innovation Hub for us and that funding they provided us. And I would like to take this opportunity to thank Elisabetta, who just jumped in with the spirit to try something. And I also thank Leicester University for having that collaboration with us and an Innovation Hub for the funds given. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank Kartheka for the video there, and thanks Manish for playing that. Elisabetta, do you have some comment on Kartheka's video and some insight into the developments?
Sorry about this. Kartheka very eloquently summarized the journey, which was not as brief as she sounded in 9 minutes. When I was listening to her, it reminded me of a recent movie. I don't know whether you have seen it, The Man Who Solved Infinity. And there is a beautiful scene when the Cambridge Don, Dr. Hardy, communicates with the young mathematician Ramanujan, and he says, well, there is we need proofs of your work. And Ramanujan says, but they are right there. And that was actually the journey that the two of us started. Neurofeedback is a technology I have been reading in the literature for learning disability, for people with autism, etc. But it was a very novel concept in my field. And it was a concept that I, as a clinician, as an academic, so maybe would improve the life of my patients. I'm a job clinician. I run the clinical service for people with dementia. Because maybe you don't know, but in the dementia field, there's only a handful of drugs that we're using, and they act temporarily. The benefits last 3, 5, maybe 7 years, but the neurodegenerative processes take the toll. And the last medication was actually on the market in 2003, so nearly 20 years ago. We've heard last week about the dementia vaccines, etc. But that will mean another 20 years until they be transferred for patients' benefit. And I'm very pleased actually to be involved in this work because I can see the progress of this work. You know, we've started with preclinical study. That is the slides that Kartheka showed. The phase 1 is now completed. There are papers published, etc. So our work in involvement with the company is in providing the rigorous academic input and validation of their work. I just commented, actually, there was lapsus calami that I don't know actually whether any of the audience checked out of curiosity the BrainBerry webpage. Maybe not. But, you know, instead of cognitive stimulation therapy, there was a cognitive behavioral therapy, place of words. And we were discussing, actually, this concept of cognitive stimulation therapy. That's the only non-drug therapy that has been licensed and accepted by the NHS and recommended by the NICE guidelines. Well, I think that would be my comment. And it was another thing from a clinician point of view, academic point of view, is that working with industry is very different to our daily work in the university and in clinics. And it is very rewarding because it broadens our expertise, our knowledge for this. Many of my colleagues who have worked in neuroscience ask me, well, how does it work? Because we are not trained to work with industry. But I reassure you that the joint working is like doing a multidisciplinary team meeting that we do in psychiatry very frequently. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Elisabetta. And that was a really nice roundup of the work that Kartheka has done. And as you said, I think it's addressed a very unmet need, as there have been no drugs available for dementia and Alzheimer's disease since 2003. And just reflecting on sort of the first session, I think it just goes to show the sort of the breadth of resilience and well-being as a topic, both from the clinical application, but then also actually the business needs and actually how you can look at sort of the application of models, and also with new problems that have emerged out of long COVID.